Press Freedom Day prompts us all to reflect on the harsh reality that in many parts of the world, press freedom is an impossible dream because the mass media really are controlled by political interests or by self-serving business interests. It's particularly alarming in the past year that the number of media workers killed around the world has reached the terrible toll of more than 130. The issue of violence against journalists is, I think, starting to be more widely discussed, but does it deserve more attention? That's at least something for us to think about today.
I believe that unregulated political comment online helps the democratic process. Only 13% of the public trust politicians to tell the truth. 7 people in 10 believe the present system of governing Britain needs improvement. The democratic process in this country needs all the help it can get. We can agree that some regulation of the media is necessary. But does it have to be by newspaper proprietors and editors under the facade of self-regulation? We're living in an over-regulated society. I would argue for less regulation, not more.
Free speech is a cornerstone of the internet. It's been one of the most important advances in modern democracy, and it would be wrong to change that. Well, unregulated content alone can degenerate into an echo chamber of unstructured opinion. Providing independent, impartial and authoritative journalism the electorate can trust is one of the main reasons the BBC exists.
People get interested in politics by virtue of campaigning for issues they care about. That is the whole point of online political blogging, to get more people involved, to find ways that they can campaign together. And actually, it is good that it's highly politically partisan. It attracts the most politically dedicated people who spend ages looking at Hansard or reading through legislation they passionately care about.
We should not confuse opportunities for free speech with opportunities that actually enhance the democratic process. It excludes at least 1/3 of the population who don't have access to computers or broadband. It excludes the elderly and the technophobic. It's equally dominated by aggressive macho men trading insults and reveling in the sound of their own opinions. Arguably, it disenfranchises women. It's completely ignored by the vast majority of the population who are far more interested in Facebook chats and celebrity gossip. Moreover, and I think this is the crucial point, it abides by no rules of truth-telling or professional journalism.
One of the issues that I think perhaps has been ignored by all 4 speakers is the fact that we're not talking about unregulated political comment online in the UK, we're talking about it globally, and I think it's one thing to talk about the fact that it might not further the democratic process potentially in the UK, but in those countries where there is no free press or free media, I think for example of Iran, there has been enormous amounts of political comment that I would say have helped to further the democratic process, particularly to put pressure internationally on those countries to change the way that they behave towards both the press and towards their public more generally.
The point about political participation is that it's supposed to be inclusive, not exclusive. That you want as many people involved in the democratic process as possible.
Hi, my name is Jamie Hervé. I'm a Master's Student of Media and Communications at the LSE, and on this question of inclusiveness, I do have a question for the opponents of the motion, and that is whether regulating political comment does not undermine the very benefit that the internet provides to democracy in terms of its role as a great equalizer. I do believe that it's a gross exaggeration to suggest that it instills a sense of democracy, but at the same time, it provides a platform through which a concerned citizenry may voice their dissent. And it is true that that dissent may be ugly, uninformed, or even highly partisan. But are these reasonable grounds for which to stifle that voice?
I think that the points made about the low barriers to entry are really interesting and are good and are one of the real pluses of the internet, as I was saying. But the difficulty is if you get that on its own without the regulated content. And because what I don't believe is that in general adds to the level of understanding. And that the very ubiquitousness of the internet, the very extent of the comment and the range of stuff that's available, means that it shouldn't blind us to the fact that actually brand pulls through. I think what I'm essentially arguing for is that there is a role for unregulated content, but there is, in parallel with that, a role for regulation and regulated public intervention, regulated content of the sort that the BBC provides and ITV and Channel 4 have traditionally provided in Britain, because in the end that can stand back a bit from the fray, can give context, can give understanding, and can help.
And there's huge amounts of research done at Goldsmiths College, funded by Leverhulme, on this whole area of online and traditional news media. There is no evidence whatsoever that online participation or comment has actually assisted participation in the democratic process in terms of adding to a greater understanding of issues or actually taking part in the electoral process.
There is no evidence that the internet changed people's voting behavior. Now, it may have happened, but I say there's no evidence that I've seen. However, I have seen the evidence, both in the flow of money and the flow of volunteers that came out of the internet that Obama used in that election campaign. Now, this did help the democratic process, and to a large degree, it took power back to the people.
So this is functional. This is the internet as a functional, instrumental process. It is not political comment.
One form of regulation that hasn't been mentioned, that's paying for sites, which I suggest to you that if this increases, if you have to pay subscriptions to the sites, will actually limit the democratic process rather than expand it. And that is in fact a form of regulation.
The figures that I have seen, and I'll need to go back to the source to check, for people, the proportion of people who actually are sufficiently interested to read or participate in online blogging is something in the very low single figure percentages, 3 or 4% maybe.
Correct.
A lot of what we've been talking about features those who are already politically active or politically interested. Those who are politically interested, whether it be in a digital economy bill or what's going to happen in the next election or what happened in America, will always find a way of getting the information they need. If I didn't have Media Guardian to look at the digital economy bill, I would go and read the debates online in Hansard, or I would talk to someone who'd been there, or I'd go there myself.
Caroline said, the blogs or unregulated comment online does not work on its own, but no one is arguing that blogs are only allowed to dominate and we should get the mainstream media out of the, check them out. And we think that national journalists or the paid media, the press, help the democratic process. But no one has yet defined what helps the democratic process. No one has said, this is what works, this is what doesn't. The point about online blogging, the point about online comment, is to try and engage other people.
The key thing that helps democracy work, and I unashamedly say this, is I believe in journalism. Journalism is about training people. It's about training them so they can analyse facts. They can differentiate between what they're told and what's accurate and what isn't. And then they have a code of conduct.
The voting was as follows: for the motion, 40; against the motion, 15, with 1 abstention. So this House believes that unregulated political comment online helps the democratic process.